Welcome to the Generation Elevation podcast, a conscious, connected platform for those who are ready to manifest their dream life. I'm your host, Elise Riley, a former PT, now motivational speaker, igniting empowerment and transformation all across the globe. Here at Generation Elevation, we are committed to bringing you the most inspiring guests who will share their stories, wisdom, and advice to help you progress closer to living a life of your own terms. Welcome back to another episode of Generation Elevation. Today I'm joined by a special guest, and he is a 3-time professional athlete. He was the captain of the England cricket team between 1996 and 2003. He's the first international professional athlete to be a professional boxer. He's also the only international sports professional to be a professional MMA fighter. He's the creator and producer of the TV show Australia's Greatest Athlete, and he's currently creating a book called Amateur to Professional. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you today Adam Hollioake. Hello,
hey.
Adam.
Hey, Elise. How are you?
I'm amazing. How are you going?
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Very nice little studio you've got here. Very relaxed.
We've got the cameras, the lighting. It keeps like upgrading and up-leveling every single episode. Like there's an extra light or an extra camera. So yeah, it's getting there. It's getting there.
I feel like I'm on set. I feel like I'm on Channel 7.
Yeah. Yeah, well, one day might resonate, definitely. So, Adam, let's get into it. I know the listeners will be super keen to hear your story, especially like the amateur to professional book that you're writing. Like that is a perfect title. I love it. And I'd love to hear more about your story. So the way I met you was actually at a Magic Group and Business event whereby you jumped on stage and you started telling stories about your life and your experience as a professional athlete. And I really resonated with your energy. And
Thank you.
Afterwards, I obviously come up to you and I introduced myself and I said that was really in resonance with what I teach. You spoke a lot about being present when you are playing cricket and all the things in regards to mindset, which if you're listening to this right now, you know that I love. So Adam, tell us a bit about your story. Like, where did you grow up and how did you then go on to be the captain of the England cricket team, then professional boxer, MMA fighter? Like, let's start from the beginning.
Yeah, so I was born and bred in Ballarat, really. So I started there until the age of 11. I mean, my parents were always travelling with work. My dad's an engineer and his work took him around the work. So he lived in Hong Kong, Norway. But then my dad made the big move to England when we were 12.
Wow.
So I went along and obviously wasn't going to go out my own at the age of 12. So I went to England and I just got caught up. Well, I was in the school system there, and while I was there, I played a lot of sport: rugby, cricket, hockey, athletics, just the normal kind of kid stuff. Mm-hmm. And then whilst I was there, I got picked up. I mean, I was probably more of a rugby player than a cricketer.
Oh, yeah.
But I was in all the representative sides growing up, but rugby wasn't professional at that stage. So fortunately for me, Surrey came and offered me a contract when I was 16 years old. So
wow.
I just went on the journey of being a professional cricketer and lived in England for 20 years.
Wow. And what was that experience like for you, obviously transitioning from Ballarat to then being in the school system over in the UK to then being picked for Surrey? Like, what were the emotional experiences that you went through during that time?
Wow. So I went to St Pat's College in Ballarat, and I think I went there, I was a year and a half younger than anyone else. I started at 10 and a half because at the time my mum and dad were living in Hong Kong. So they asked if the school would accept me early, so I was a little bit younger than the rest of the kids. And when I was there, it was very much a country sort of, a lot of the country boys from around there came to the school, and a little bit darker skinned than some of them. So at that age, I got into a few skirmishes, shall we say, with people for like, I think it's just name calling. It wasn't bullying or anything like that, but just I was fire a young kid, and I got into a lot of. I was definitely the darkest person in the school. So I think some of my favourite names were Licorice Stick, Chalk Wedge, and stuff like that. But it's just name calling.
This is in regards to your skin colour.
Yeah. So, at the time, I didn't really have the skills to deal with those words. So for me, I was pretty fired up, and I did a lot of fighting. Then from there, I went to school in a really exclusive. My dad's got a good job, and one of the part of things was they put me through a good private school over there. And then I went to that school, and it was quite a different kind of feel to it, because I wasn't the darkest by any means. There was quite a few kids from the Caribbean and Africa, and but I definitely wasn't the whitest either, because of all the English kids that were there. So I was just somewhere in the middle, and didn't encounter any of that or anything like that. Wow. I'm not bad-mouthing the schools. It was just the situation I was in. So, I guess that's something that sticks out in my mind. I think I became very aware of race and very aware of where people fit into groups and such growing up. Yeah, it's quite funny. A lot of my friends in England are black, and then especially with this Black Lives Matter movement, which is going on, which is I think a very good thing. They try and start preaching to me about it a lot of the time, and I always joke to them. I go, well, I don't, I wish I could be racially abused, because I don't even know where I'm from. I'm a concoction of all these things. I just want to belong to someone, but I don't belong to anything. So we need to start a movement up. Was it like mongrel dogs?
Dogs.
Junkyard dogs, like My Lives Matter too, mixed breed. So, so that was kind of my earliest memories of that. And then I just blended for the first time when I went over to England, and it was quite nice to just feel part of just the normal group, as opposed to being standing out for any one reason. And so you were picked to play for Surrey. Yes. And
what was your journey going from starting there to then becoming the captain of the England team?
Yeah, it was a mad journey, because I sort of, as I've alluded to, I was a pretty fiery young kid, and I'd never been a captain of any team before growing up. So I'd always just been the sort of fiery, aggressive, little bit of a problem child growing up. And then one day they came to me, I think I was about 21, 22. Bearing in mind, I'd never been captain of any sports team from age of like 10 all the way through. And they came to me and they said, we'd like you to be captain of Surrey, which is like one of the biggest sides in England. And I literally turned around because I thought someone must be standing behind me. So, and then from that moment on, I kind of feel like I took to the job pretty well, better than I even expected myself. I think because I think probably because I was always that person in the middle. I didn't really belong anywhere, and I kind of I always connected with black people, white people, Asians, all the different religions. I had always travelled so much as a kid, so I felt that I connected with people. So it was just a strange way I fell into it, though.
And so then you've gone on to, after cricket, you've also had the MMA, the boxing. So where does that fit into all of this?
It's crazy. So I retired in 2004 from cricket. My brother, who was also played cricket with me, he was actually the youngest player to play for England. He played when he was 19. So he unfortunately died in a car crash age 24. So I retired from cricket quite young. I was only 31 when I retired, and probably just coming into my peak. I retired, and just to sort of come back and support my family back here in Australia. And then I had a property development business, which was pretty successful as well. But then we got caught out in the global financial crash and lost a lot of money. And then I realised I was 38, 39 and needed to find something to do. I was probably, up until that point, thought I was never going to have to work again. So I was trying to work out I'd alienated myself from cricket by coming away from England. I had never done very well at school, so I'd finished last time I was at school was when I was 18, and I didn't go into uni or any of that, and I'd never been in the workplace. And after that, I'd been an entrepreneur. So what am I going to do? And just by chance, I was training down at Matrix Boxing Gym down here on the Gold Coast.
Oh, yeah.
And the head trainer down there, Stephen NG, he didn't know that situation, but he asked me one day if I'd want to come down and train with a couple of the guys who are professional fighters down there, and I did pretty well against them. And the next minute, he asked me if I wanted to have a professional fight, and I was like, "Nah, I'm too old." And even though they were offering me money, it wasn't the reason I was going to do it. But he said, "I'd be pretty cool to say you were captain of the England cricket team and a professional boxer." So he appealed to the biggest thing on my body, which is my ego. And I was like, yeah, that would be pretty cool, actually. So the next minute, I was like, when's the fight? He said, the fight's on Saturday. So I was like, well, what day is today? It's like Tuesday. So I went there and I won that fight. I knocked that guy out. And then when I came back, everyone had known that I was a wrestler and saw that I got a professional knockout in boxing. They then started chasing me to fight in MMA.
Right.
And then about a month later, they said to me, we want to fight professionally MMA. I was like, nah, I'm not interested. And then Steve, who by this stage knew how to get to me, it was definitely through my ego. He said, "Man, it'd be pretty cool to say you're the captain of the England cricket team, a professional boxer and a professional mixed martial artist." I was like, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. So the next minute I was walking into the fight in the cage as well. So I just went on a mad roll after that. For 4 or 5 years, I was a professional fighter.
Wow.
So I just kind of gathered. I mean, you were talking to me before about just things that you just get taken on a path, and I just got taken that way at that time.
Yeah, before we started recording, we were talking about saying yes to life, and when opportunities present themselves. I've spoken about this in a prior podcast, whereby life gives you choices. You make decisions based on what you believe in. So if you believe you can, you're going to keep saying yes, 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 yes. And life's going to keep giving you these choices, and you're going to keep saying yes to these decisions based on that belief, versus if you thought you were too old, or you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you're not ready yet, you're going to start saying no to these opportunities that come up, waiting for them to come back around again, and knowing that potentially they may not come back around again as well. So I even just did a post and podcast just then about how you can either take the risk and say yes and take the leap of faith, trust yourself, or you can let the risk take you. So let the risk take away that thing that you truly want deep down, that you're letting yourself hold, like you're holding yourself back from. So I'm curious to know, Adam, your experience with mindset going through your journey as a professional athlete in such a diverse fields, and then also how that has led you to do what you do now.
Yeah, also just before I go into that, just backing up what you just said, it's quite interesting. You were telling me some of the stuff you were looking to do, and it's like, for me, I was like, wow, that's pretty, it's outgoing. And then you went down the whole, you've got to say yes. And my daughter's probably similar age to you. She's coming to that sort of crossroads in life. And I said, hey, look, just if in doubt, I always say take the aggressive option, take the one that's going to challenge you the most, because you can always come back. You can always come back to our point now, what we're doing. If we're in our really safe job and there's an opportunity to do something, that opportunity it might not come around again. Worst case scenario, you can always come back to doing what you're doing. So I think people, when they're faced with those decisions, I'm not saying it's easy, but when you're faced with those things, you can always, it's a good thing to remember that, is this something I can just come back to anyway? It's going to be here. So I'm not really risking as much as I think I am.
Usually the worst thing that could happen is, like you said, you go back to exactly where you were before you made the decision to try.
Yes.
And
at least you've had a crack.
Yeah, at least you know the answer.
Yes, you're still in a better, if you end up back in the same position, you're still in a better position because you've tried it and it didn't work, and you don't have those questions in your head anymore.
Wiser. So you've still gained something.
100%.
Yeah. So like I said, back to the question in regards to your mindset throughout that journey, and then how's that led you to what you do now?
It's weird because I think when I first turned professional cricket, I had so many thoughts. Like most young athletes, I had a lot of stuff going on in my head, and then I was sort of fumbling my way through life. When I was playing cricket, I was worried about my finances, and then when I was at home, I was worried about my cricket. And I remember reading something of all people from Sharon Stone, the actress. I don't know, you probably don't know who she is either.
No.
But anyway, she's famous for some movies back in the day. I'm going to say the 80s and 90s. She's and not necessarily renowned for being. I mean, I think she's famous for crossing and uncrossing her legs with no knickers on it. So, but she's actually. So I was reading just an article which he'd done. It was like one of those, like name, Sharon Stone, star sign, Virgo, favorite color, favorite song. And then one of the ones that got to advice for life. But at this stage, it was pretty vanilla, pretty boring kind of thing. And I don't know why I even know I read it, but it was, and she went into quite a lot of depth in their answer. It was like to be present. And that in itself doesn't say a lot, but she said, when I'm acting, I'd be worried about my kids who are at home. So and not doing a very good job of acting. So I'd be worried about, my kids, when I get home, what am I going to do? So I'm not focused on what I'm doing now. And then I'd get home and I'd be with my kids and I'd be thinking about my role that I've got to play the next day. She said, and I wasn't being a very good mum. So and it was actually just the two really and it made me realize I was doing the same thing in life. When I was at cricket, I was, thinking about things off the field. And then when I was off the field, I was worried about my cricket. And then I realized that the two kind of go hand in hand. And the only way that I was ever going to be successful in that and then in life was to be able to be present at that time. And then even more so when you're actually performing. So obviously to be present at a game of cricket, you're there. I'm not thinking about what's going on. I'm making sure I'm managing my off-field hassles. So to give you an example, when I was coaching the under-17s, I coached the Queensland side, but one of my jobs was to take the under-17s to a tournament, and we prepared for it for a couple of months. And then a week or so out from it, I just wrote to them all and I said, listen, we worked hard for this tournament. When we go there, we're going there to win, and I want you guys to all be present for the 10 days that this tournament goes on for. So that means if your mum's been asking you to mow the lawn, go out and do that now, because we don't want her nagging you while you're away on tour. If you're thinking about breaking up with your girlfriend, like this is about a month out, I said either do it now, don't wait till the week before we go away, or wait till we get back, because you know what that's going to bring. You're going to be distracted. And that's a hard thing in life. If you've got projects outstanding from school, get those done, because what that actually does is it clears your mind to enable you to be present. It's much harder to be present when you've got these things in your life which aren't. So you need to control elements in your life to allow yourself to be present at what you do.
Yeah. So powerful. And this is something that I even teach my clients in regards to, I use a bucket as a metaphor, a bucket full of water. And if you think about, I've got to do this thing, I've got to do this thing. Oh, this thing, what about my kids? What about like my meals prepped for the day? Or what about that post that I need to make? Or what about that practice match that I need to get ready for? Or what about that tournament? Like all these little things poke holes in your bucket, and each time you have a hole in your bucket, obviously this water, this energy is going to come out. And the more holes you have, the more things and ideas that come through to you, and the more holes that you have, the less water you're going to have, the less energy that you're going to have. So the key to sustaining your energy is like blocking up those holes by following through on the thing. There's so many people I know that would let their hole in their bucket leak. Oh, I've got to do that thing. I got to do that thing. And they don't actually do the thing. And it's like, go do the thing. And I trust that when you do, you're going to have more energy. You're going to feel clean slated, and then you're going to be able to be more present in the task at hand. And there's a study that says a wandering mind is an unhappy mind. So when you are present, you're going to be happier regardless. Even if the thing you're doing isn't that exciting, you're going to be happier regardless.
Happier and better at what you're doing. So I really like that. I'd never heard that analogy before, but I tried to articulate it to my under 17s, and I was struggling to connect with them. I'm an old dinosaur, and these kids are young, and I was thinking, how can I connect with them? What analogy can I use? I love that your one with the bucket and the water really appeals to really basic Polynesian like me. It's like I can associate with that. It's like maybe a coconut with some water.
Yeah.
But I was trying to use a similar analogy to the kids, and I said, okay, you got an iPhone. Mm-hmm. So you all got iPhones, right? Yeah, we got iPhones. So your iPhone is your brain. I said, when you've got your program, you've got your Facebook, your Instagram, your emails, your SMS, your WhatsApp, your all these things open, all these browsers open. They're things that you haven't solved in your mind. Said your phone doesn't work as well. Your battery's draining. It's not working well. I said, so you need to close your windows. When you're just using your calendar, that should be the only thing you've got open. You shut all the other ones, so then your phone works more efficiently. You won't be as tired, and you'll be much better. I prefer your one of the bucket, but
I love that one. I was like, wow, that is so good. Like, obviously, when you got all your browsers open, your battery's going to die real quick. Mm-hmm. Like, my phone, literally.
And it doesn't work as well. So the battery dies quick, and you try and ask it to do something, and it takes longer.
That's so cool. Yeah, 100%. And they both work both ways. And metaphors.
Well, you can steal mine, and I'll steal yours.
Yeah,
I'll use the bucket one because it appeals to our generation.
Done. Deal. So, tell me more about, like, you're obviously coaching the under 17s, and you went through that journey with them. And I love that. The presence piece of like telling people, okay, you've got to get those things clean slate, your bucket, your iPhone, your energy before you go into that tournament. And now with what you're creating in regards to your book and writing this, like, is it mainly just about presence, or what else
is in it?
Yeah.
So you got to buy it.
Well, yeah, 100%.
No, I'll tell you. It's just...
Or maybe to reframe that question, it would be, if for those who are listening who are athletes, who are entrepreneurs, who are those wanting to become the best version of themselves, apart from presence, what would be maybe 3 other tips that you could give them to help them level up to be the best person or best version of themselves that they can be?
Yeah, I mean, it's very much aimed at athletes. I mean, that's what I've done. I'm not going to pretend to be a business guru or anything else, but I do feel that the skills are transferable purely because definitely they're transferable within sports, because no one can tell me that cricket and fighting in a cage has got any similarities from a physical perspective, but there are similarities from a mental preparation perspective. So some of the things that I will go into in the book is being present, like we've discussed, and then how to do that, and some skills to practice, awesome. Visualization, which kind of moves into that same sort of. I mean, part of your visualization should be being present anyway. So, and then how to do that, just goal setting. A lot of people don't have. They're not very good at goal setting. So even when I became, a cricketer for the first time, I'm speaking here like I'm some sort of guru. I'm not. I'm just replicating things that I've learned along the way from other people. But I guess I've been in a blessed position to encounter the best people from each field and been able to take a bit from them. So with goal setting, a lot of people, they goal set the outcome rather than the process. So, let's talk about boxing for a second. Floyd Mayweather, probably, the best fighter if the last sort of 10 years, arguably. A lot of young kids, they'll mimic him holding up the belts. They'll mimic his little antics that he does, which are highlights, They mimic him, they want to mimic him riding in a limousine or in a private jet, but Floyd's up running at 5 a.m. Floyd's not eating sugar. He's sacrificing. He's doing things. So you need to mimic the processes rather than the outcome. So, like for example, when I was setting goals, when they said, "What do you want to be?" I said, "I want to be the best cricketer in the world." Okay, well that's good, but there's quite a bit missing in that story. It's like, me saying this is the best book in the world. I mean, you got to, this is a book that helps you come from amateur to professional. There's a lot of stuff I've got to write in there to actually fill that in. So how am I going to become the best cricketer in the world? So I'm going to have to train hard. I'm going to have to be dedicated. I'll have to short-term and long-term goals. So, and that short-term goal might be when I turn up to training, turning up with the right attitude, turning up with, prepared to work hard and stick to the fundamentals. And then once that becomes a habit, then putting it all together and saying, okay, I've now achieved that goal of that particular skill, and now I'm ready to go on to the next one. So, and then being able to reevaluate those goals. So goal setting's part of it as well. So mentorship, I think everyone needs a good mentor. Then a mentor and a coach are very different in sport anyway, because coaches, you might have one coach 1 year and another, you might have a coach for 2 or 3 years and he might get sacked or resign, or so you need someone who's been there on your whole journey to keep it real. Parents are usually great mentors, but sometimes, someone, if they've got an understanding of that sport, and I think that's why we see so many kids, parents who are good sportsmen, their kids become it because they're able to mentor them through that process. So, that's just a few of the things. And there's about 16 different topics in there all in all. So.
I love that. It sounds amazing, and I'll definitely be jumping on that when you release it for sure. And when you do, I'll put it up on my socials and everything as well. And it's interesting what you're saying, because I was watching a reel from Simon Beard this morning, who is one of the owners of Culture Kings. And he was explaining that when he was starting his business, he was modeling the greatest business owners of all time, Disney and a few other people. I couldn't remember the names of them. However, he was modeling what their antics, like you were saying, but he was also backtracking their journey to how they started and writing notes and studying them from their amateur phase of their journey to their professional phase of their journey. And then now to look what he's created. So if he's done that, then those who are listening can then realize, well, find the people that are doing the things that you want to do. Find the people that are being the person that you want to be, and then start to model their behavior, start showing up in the way that they would. And then you start to then mimic their energy, and also potentially that could lead you to exactly where you want to be.
100%. And surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded. It's A1 advice. People unashamedly copied people all the way through my life. If someone's doing something all right, then goddamn copy them. I'm not sure what that saying is. I don't think I'll get it right. It's is it copying is the highest form of flattery or something like that. I think they use a better word than copying. But it's, mimicking is the highest form. The amount of people that are inspired by Jimi Hendrix doesn't mean they have to play exactly the same as Jimi Hendrix. They have a certain style. So I've done that with all the sports that I've been involved in. So I think also you've got to be realistic when you do that, because, your talents lie in certain areas. So, it's all very well me saying, I'm going to mimic Enrique Iglesias. Only problem is I'm 30 kilos heavier than him and can't sing, and I'm not as good looking. But it's you got to you can take,
be in alignment with your values. Yeah. It's definitely getting clear on what you value, which I can do another podcast on that. But getting clear on what you value, and then trusting, using techniques and lessons from other people around you, and taking what you think you need for that next step in your journey, not their journey.
That's right, yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm curious to know, especially for the athletes that are listening to this, what has been your journey after sport? Because I know that a lot of people experience, especially people that I work with, they experience this feeling of I don't know who I am without the sport.
100%. That's an amazing line of questioning, because I actually write for Ocean Road magazine. And one of the first article I wrote, I'm a feature writer for them, and one of the first articles I wrote was about professional athletes and the amount of them that get themselves into mental health problems, addictions, financial problems, what have you. And so I did a lot of study on that. And so for me, I worked out when it came time to finish fighting, I realised that look, I'm not going to be able to do this forever. I was actually training for a fight in London, a big fight. And I got halfway through my run and I was with my trainer and we're running together. And I just stopped. I said, that's it. I don't want to do it anymore. He goes, oh, you don't want to run anymore? I said, no, I don't want to fight. I can't think of anything worse than being punched one more time in the face. So I stopped. That was it. I quit. And I realised that I didn't want to do that anymore. But I also realised quite early in the piece that I needed that form of competitiveness in my life. So I tried to look up the sports which old people could play. So I found golf and lawn bowls, both of which I didn't really want to do and I didn't like. So I realised, well, okay, I don't have to be there. I can coach. I can pass on some knowledge and I can still be involved in the competitiveness. I'm still invested in the win and lose situation. So I've been coaching cricketers and fighters as well. So I do both. So,
wow.
And I love it. I love it. So it's my way of staying connected with the sports and still getting that little bit of buzz and excitement of competition time.
I'm curious to know, Adam, your advice potentially for those that are listening that have had that ego death, let's just call it that, whereby they have done this thing, maybe they've had this role in their life, this job, this identity for so long, and then something's happened in their life whereby maybe they're not playing that sport anymore, maybe they've had a death in the family, maybe they've had a breakup, maybe they've lost their job. What would be your advice for those people that are going through that phase in their life right now and they're thinking like, I don't know who I am anymore, what's next?
Yeah, it's a hard one and it's all relative. So, I mean, I've been fortunate, I call it, to have been through a lot of tough times in my life. I call it fortunate because I think you grow from every time that...
of course.
Yeah, so the first thing that ever happened to me was in 1996 when I was 25. My best friend died in a car accident. Up until that point, I think the worst thing that had ever happened to me was I'd had a bad day playing cricket, or maybe someone took an hour to bring my food out of the restaurant. I'd have led such a blessed life, do you know what I mean? That hit me incredibly hard. And because it's all comparative. So, for example, like when I had my kids, I'd like, you take a toy off of a child when they're a year old, they go to pieces, they cry, they were nearly carrying on. Well, no, because relatively that's the worst thing that's ever happened to that child. So then you give the kid back the toy after a day and then they're happy. You take it again off them, they cry. After a while, when you keep doing this, they get the toy taken off them and they realise, okay, well, I'll get the toy back tomorrow. So it's a learning process. They get more resilient. And I think with life, it's really important to draw on the things that you've gotten through in your life. A lot of people, life's hard. Life's really hard. And, there's people, I'm fairly fortunate in my life and I find life hard. So, and there's people I know, very successful people who still find life hard. So just for everyday person, life is hard. So you have to draw at times when you're going through challenging times. You've got to draw on those challenges, those things that you've successfully overcome before. That's all we've got. That's all we can do. So, and if you are finding this challenge that you're going through is harder than anything you've been through, I think just being patient and having faith that you're going to get through it, and then know that when you come through it, you're going to be stronger than what you were before. So I don't know if I'm fortunate or unfortunate. The things I've been through now, there's not really anything that scares me anymore because I've lost so many people who have died around me, like close people. My brother was my closest person to my best mate, and financially I went through a really tough time during the global financial crash. So I've lost financially. What it does now, I kind of look at life and I stick my chest out sometimes. I'm like, what are you going to throw at me now? Whatever you've thrown at me, I've been through it. So just please leave my kids alone. Other than that, I'm not scared of anything. So I don't know. That's not me trying to be tough. That's just acknowledging that the tough things I've been through, which have enabled me to be in this position. So I don't know. Hopefully that helps some people who are going through hard stuff out there, that the sun will always come up the next day, regardless of what we go through. And you just got to have faith that things are going to turn around for you.
And that faith and trust in knowing that these things that happen to you happen for you. Like the listeners, they probably want to write things down. Like what are like 3 dot point things that the listeners can take away from what you just shared in regards to knowing that there's always going to be sunshine in the next day or so, right? What can be 3 things that they can write down to go, okay, like this is what I'm going to do now?
Well, I think writing, going back to what you said before about the buckets as well as like, and you know, things getting overwhelming. I think lists are so undervalued. Like, you know, we get these things going on in our mind, and sometimes to write things down and, you know, there's a famous sports psychology statement. It's control the controllables. There's certain things that you just can't control, you know. I always find it fascinating that people look at the weather. I'm like, there's nothing I can do about it. I don't care. Like, someone's go, have you seen what the weather's going to be like? I was like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I couldn't care less. Like, why? I said, well, I can't change it. I mean, other than like, do I take a raincoat or it's like, it really, nothing you can do. I mean, I feel myself that I can be quite influential, but I haven't managed a way to influence the big man upstairs yet. He's got it over there. So, I think controlling the controllables is a big one, you know, and some of the things you can't control, you know, like if someone, you know, grief is a hard thing and you've just got to be patient and you've just got to do your time, you know, like my brother dying, you know, I just had to just try, and there's positives in everything. And that sounds so wrong when you're going through something like as traumatic as my brother dying in a car crash for quite a while after it. And I accept that's part of the process. All I could do was worry about the pain that he might have experienced at the time he died. And then I was, after a year or so, I was like, but that's a year. So here I am saying, I was knocked down for a year. Then I was like, well, don't dwell on that 5-minute period when he died in a car crash. Why am I focusing? He had 24 beautiful years and we had amazing memories. And so then when I switched my thinking around and started remembering all the good things we did in those times when he was alive, instead of focusing on that period of him dying, that very much changed my outlook on it. And again, control. There's nothing I can do. He's gone. So I can't control that, but I can control what I think about. So that's, it's advice, but there's so many different ways for people to handle their own things, and everyone grieves in their own way. I mean, I try not to get too preachy on grief because it's all relative to that person, and I don't think there's anyone who's necessarily got the answers to everything. I can only sort of, I guess, give advice on things that have worked for me.
I love that answer so much. Thank you for sharing.
No problems.
And I'm curious to know, like, what is coming up for you now? Like, this has been a huge journey for you, and this is like just the beginning, really. I feel like you're about to launch this book and you've got a few other creations coming. Like, where do you see yourself going with all of this? What's your mission?
It's interesting because if you'd asked me that 10 years ago, I wanted to be, have a lot of money. I'd lost a lot of money, so I wanted to get it back. And it's quite interesting. After that, losing that money, I lost about $40 million in the global financial crash. And I went through this dark period. I was trying to get it back, like yesterday, trying to get it back straight back. I was like, it ain't going to happen. Quite interestingly, having been poor growing up to having this incredible wealth and then having it taken away, I was like that kid who has their favorite toy taken off them. I was like, I want it back. And then after about 6 months, I kind of stopped and I looked. I was like, man, I'm happy. I don't know, why am I happy? I'm like, well, I'm not as sad as I think. I'm happy because I was expecting myself to be so sad, but all my friends were still there. I was still doing the same shit that I was when I had money, which was, even when I had money, I didn't do much. I'd go down to the gym and fight with my mates and do some training and just hang with my kids. So I lived a pretty simple life. My car was a little bit slower and my house was a little bit smaller, but other than that, everything was the same. So I guess I got a healthy appreciation and more of a understanding of where money fitted into my life. And and with my confidence, I just back myself to always earn enough money in my life to be able to eat and have put a roof over my kids' head, and that's all I need. And then everything else for me is just about trying to be as good a person as I can and try and leave a legacy where if I meet someone, hopefully when I leave that room, they go, you know, that's a nice guy. So if I can do that, then, you know, then I guess that's kind of where I want to be.
I love that so much. And yeah, I definitely resonate with the, like, just meeting people and connecting with people and sharing your wisdom in the hope that potentially it may help another.
And it is. And, you know, you don't necessarily need anything for it. Doesn't mean I'm putting my book for free, but
no.
It's nice to know that, you know, it's the things I've been involved in, some things before which, you know, trying to make money, and they're not necessarily, you know, property, which was I was in. I feel like maybe that wasn't for me, because it's just the bottom line was always money. So it wasn't like I was going, wow, I've got to provide houses for the poor people. That wasn't my thinking. So it was obviously a money based thing. So whereas now I sort of come from the position of, you know, what do people need and what do we want? And
we spoke about this before we started recording too, when the actions come from the mind, what we think that we should do or what we believe we could do versus what we know we can do, and the actions that come from the soul. And like you writing this book, it's from the soul.
Yeah, it's a mixture. I mean, I kind of really like the way you put it before we came on here, and you said I think there's a place in sport, because sport has become very corporate and very governed and very methodical, and I think there is some, I mean, I'm not saying that we can give the science up of training, because that's still important, but I think there's a blend, and I think there is a place in sport, like you mentioned, for more spiritual and soulful approach to sport, and I think finding that blend is the hard thing, because I mean a lot of people is very much, you can see some sports team is so scientific with their approach to things that they lose the personality, not as in just individual personality, the team loses its personality, and when that team loses its personality, sometimes they don't perform to more than the sum of their goods. I mean, that's something that people talk about, is a team performing more than the sum of the parts in it, and that's from a spiritual perspective. We've seen teams over the years playing for a higher good achieve things which, you know, I mean, in companies, you know, if there's business people out there, I don't claim to be, like I said, I don't claim to be an amazing businessman, but when you've got a team that's working towards a common goal because they're feeling that there's that spiritual side to it, if we're all out here playing for God because we all believe in it, you're not just playing because, hey, I want to get more money next year. It's like, and everyone's on that communal thing, then I feel like you can achieve greatness.
100%. And even what we were saying before, we were having the best conversation before we recorded this too. So this conversation's fire. That's because we preempted it with a fireful conversation earlier. And we were talking about how, like, when you do take action from soul, and how that, like, everything starts to flow. It's almost like you're one step ahead. And I was saying to Adam that my innermost question, I believe, is what's the difference between someone who is successful and someone who is not? And this is what drives me to do what I do, to understand people, and how can someone or two people have the same opportunities and choices in life and upbringing, and they have a different outcome in their life in the end, versus like someone succeeding and someone who does not. And I really believe that when you're in alignment and you connect to your heart, when you connect to your soul's destiny through all the mindfulness practices that I've spoken about on this podcast, and what we've spoken about today in regards to presence, I really believe that is when everything just lines up for you. You know, those moments when you start saying yes, like we said earlier, and then all of the opportunities come, or you know where the ball's going to go, or you know what this person's going to say, even just because you're so in alignment and in tune with your heart.
It is. It's really hard and I love the fact that it's very hard to articulate. It's very hard to write about because it is such a feel. It's amazing. When you were talking about that before, I was going, wow, that's so true. I remember when I was young, I think I've already alluded to the fact that I was pretty loose and pretty fiery and edgy individual.
Yeah.
I would meet somebody and if I got a bad vibe from them, I don't want anything to do with them. I just trusted my gut. I was like, I don't like this guy. I don't want anything to do with him. Get out. And then I started becoming more understanding, I think, through a corporate kind of governance kind of way. I've got to give this person a chance. And I think there's an area where there's a sweet spot where you don't want to be just writing people off. But then I think the times when I've got myself in the most trouble is with this not trusting my heart and not trusting my gut instinct. And if I feel, and I've tried to go back to that again now, where if I don't believe in someone's there for the right good, then it's a see you later. So I don't need anything else. Like I said, I'm not after money. I'm not after anything. Like it's a nice position. It's quite a liberating thing to be as well, where you just think, I don't like what this person's vibe. I don't like the way they feel. So I don't need them. I'm just trusting myself. And it's hard to do because you're always scared that you're getting it wrong or you're being rude but I think, and that's the journey, isn't it? So you're trying to get that right.
Yeah. It's like, how can you be so confident within yourself and so in tune with your own answers from within that you don't have to outsource your power to anyone else, your mentors, your teachers, your coaches outside of you, because you already know the answers within your own self.
Yeah, that's good. I like the way you articulate things better than the way I do.
Oh, no. It's like we speak to different audiences. And
I'm stealing it.
Yeah, you can steal it. You can copy me. Yeah. It's straight the best. So, Adam, where can my listeners find you if they want to buy your book when it launches, where they want to connect with you, if they want to be like, oh my God, this is the coolest podcast. Adam, you're amazing. Where can they go?
Oh, at the moment, not very. I was on Twitter, but someone hacked me. And
oh, no.
They hacked me and I was like, I don't really care, so I'm not really that fussed on that anymore. But then they started pretending that they're an expert in NFTs. And even then I was like, I don't care, whatever. But then they've someone wrote to me on Instagram. I am on Instagram. It's just Adam Hollioake, all lowercase. And the person that's mimicking me on Twitter is now stealing people's money under my name.
No,
so,
I've heard of this happening before.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get in touch with Twitter to get it sorted. But,
yeah.
And I was cool with it. I wasn't cool. I was disappointed with it. But then he changed my profile picture and my friends straight away, this must give you an indication of that I'm quite vain and quite egotistical. He changed this picture to this really bad picture of me. All my mates messaged me and went, there's no way that that's you because you're too vain to put a picture up that bad of yourself.
Oh no. So you did say that you had Instagram. What was your Instagram?
It's Adam Hollioake, AdamHollioake.
Amazing.
That's it.
Amazing.
Or LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I don't go on there.
Oh, easy. And
my Instagram is pretty boring. I just basically pictures of me and my kids, but I guess I'll start putting some stuff up about the book as well.
100%.
Now that you've mentioned it, I'll get onto that.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll share all that on my stories and things when that comes out, and I'll pop all your links as well in the show notes. So if you want to connect with Adam, definitely go there to check that out. Now, Adam, I have one last question for you today.
This is going to be bad. The way she's looked at me, I know this is a curly one.
Yeah, I ask all my listeners this one. And what I want you to do is just tune into your heart, your intuition, your guidance. It doesn't have to resonate with anything that we've spoken about today. However, if you were to tune in, what would be the advice that you think the listeners need to hear right now?
Whew. Jeez.
First answer. From the heart.
Everything's going to be okay. I actually almost broke into the Bob Marley thing. Every little thing's going to be all right. But I think, just hang in there, be patient. And then whatever you're going through, everyone's hard times, financial times hard for people. Some wars going on at the moment and, some religious unrest. And I think that you just have to everyone have faith and just keep believing in the human spirit and, hopefully they'll these old men in suits will stop sending young people off to wars, and we'll stop fighting, and then just get back to living. I think we just have faith and just believe that that'll happen. The more people that do that, I think that's more likely for that outcome to arise.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, guys. And make sure, like I said, to follow Adam and to subscribe to this podcast. I'll catch you in the next episode. Thank you for being a part of the Generation Elevation community. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to leave a 5-star rating, written review, share, and tag me on Instagram at elise.riley. Until next time, keep loving, keep learning, and keep rising.